Could you please elaborate on
Stand up, please.
Could you please elaborate on your contributions to the Democratic Party?
Yes. Over the course of my business career, I have contributed to both Democrats and Republicans, more to Republicans than I have Democrats. The specific issue that came up about Rahm Emanuel, and I did identify the fact that he is the brother of Ari Emanuel. Ari Emanuel is the president of a company that is now known as William Morris Endeavor, which is a very large agency in California that has represented WWE since the early 1990s. During the course of that time, Ari would call me and he would say, look, I've got this art project going on, this arts festival, this whatever, we've contributed. He's contributed to things that WWE has done. He called me one day and he said, my brother is running for Congress in Illinois. Happened to be Rahm. I didn't know Rahm. We make a donation, sure. So that happened 2 or 3 times. Then he called me again and he said, look, over the course of years, and then he called me in like 2005, 2006, and he said, my brother Rahm is going to be in Stamford, Connecticut. You've never met. He'd like to come by and say hello. He's probably going to put the arm on you again. I said, fine. So Rahm comes by, puts the arm on me again, and I gave him a check. Now, these were not politically motivated checks, but the Republicans that I have supported were for my support. Chris Shays, Nancy Johnson, even John Thune recently. So I've contributed more to Republicans than I have Democrats. In the course of my business career, I've contributed to both.
It may seem like non-sequitur, but what are your views on Second Amendment rights?
I'm a strong proponent of Second Amendment rights. And I'm a strong proponent of the Constitution and Second Amendment rights in particular. Mr. Ragnar.
I'll make this one easy. What's it like being married to Vince?
I've been asked that question a lot in the course of my life, and I said, some women say they hook their wagon to a star, and I hook mine to a rocket ship. It's been quite a ride.
A follow-up question. Specifically, we talk about job growth. Bob over here alluded to it. But specifically, what would you be looking at solutions? Because the tax code, because one of the things that really, pains a lot of Americans is the negotiations for the bailout of financial institutions, only to have them prepay those funds so they can pay out bonuses. So how do you feel about what should have been done in that decision-making if you were sitting in the Senate seat, how you would have prevented that from happening? And also, what would you your solutions for trade agreements, tariffs, to protect the American economy in a global society?
Well, first of all, relative to the bailouts and the early payments, if I'd been sitting in the Senate, I would have been royally torqued off that the companies that we bailed out then turned around and gave them bonuses. I think that was, even if they had every right to do it, I would question every CEO or board of directors of those companies for the thought process that still made that happen. I understand about having competition among bankers. I understand about having good people that you employ, top-flight financial experts, etc. But at that time, given that mood of the country, I just think it was dead wrong. I ran a public company. I have resigned as the CEO of WWE, and I'll full attention to this race. And I didn't think it's fair to people of Connecticut or the stockholders of WWE to try and do both. But I have a board of directors in the compensation committee, and we are very conscious of things that are done at WWE that may be totally correct to do, but what is the perception of that action? And how are you going to be perceived in the marketplace? Because, after all, we are providing goods and services that we want consumers to buy and to stay tuned to WWE. So I just think that it was just really poor decision-making. In terms of tariffs and trade agreements, I'm not an expert in those things. I would like to study them and make decisions, but I can tell you that we need to be careful of the value of our dollar and not let our dollar continue to decline, because our dollar has to be king, and that's how we trade best That is how we are supported economically in the world. And if we let our dollar continue to decline, we're going to have real issues.
If, I'm sorry, Mr. Crispin,
We got one. Just come back and
One more.
then Mr. Mayor, you get it?
Thanks. Linda, when you're elected senator, you're going to have a lot of pressure to bring home the bacon to the communities of Connecticut. What's your philosophy on federal earmarks? Are they all bad, some good, all good? And how would you approach being able to handle that in the allocation process when you're setting a budget and making a decision?
I don't think all earmarks are bad, but I believe the way to handle earmarks is with total transparency. These are the things that you're negotiating for your state. They're not done in backroom deals. And, you know, there are funds that are available for projects, but I believe that there should be a real process put into place to get those funds. I've heard from different people who actually received stimulus money or they've received state aid or municipal aid, and the strings attached, you know, to get some of these projects done. You know, we actually had, I spoke with one mayor who wanted a parking garage built, and he had the funds for it, but the restrictions on the parking garage were so strict that what the town council came up with was they were going to develop, you know, walking paths through towns. And they said, no, we're not going to spend the federal money even though it's been allocated to us because we don't need this. And I think there has to be a lot more of that kind of interaction, you know, between the leaders, you know, in cities and in our states. But that's a lot, you know, also on the local level. But I do think there is an opportunity for earmarks to be done in a proper way. But the pork barrel spending that we've got going on today, you know, bridges to nowhere and that kind of thing, absolutely not.
Linda, I know that there's not supposed to be any more questions, but what are you going to do about China? They're holding us by the earlobes, and I'm afraid.
But we let them.
Yes, we have, but not you and me, not that many.
Well, actually, you know, when you are desperate, and you go to find money, you go where money's available. And if you're not doing anything about changing your own economy, and you've still got your hand out, that's a tough position to be in. There is an imbalance of trade, you know, with China. I think there are a lot more exports. As a matter of fact, I was speaking to the dairy farmers up in the, I forget what town exactly, anyway, it was not too far from here. But I was talking to this dairy farmer and I said, are you hurt by the economy? He said, yes, we are. We dairy farmers are hurt very much. You may find this surprising. I did. And I said, what has affected you the most? He said, the fact that we don't export as much as we used to. I said, export your dairy products? He said, yes. I said, where to? He said, China. He said, and we're not exporting our dairy products to China since the scare, it was what, a year and a half, a couple of years ago, when there was this product that was put into milk and children were dying. And since that time, the Chinese really stopped drinking as much milk and utilizing as much dairy products. And it really affected dairy farmers here in Connecticut. I can't speak for, you know, around the country, but I was surprised that exports to China, you know, from dairy farmers, you know, would affect their economy. Let me thank you again very much for having me tonight, and I can come another time.
I'd love to have you do that.